go. All right, so starting on time. My name's Seth Cordes. I have been the co-chair of the business SIG for a couple of years in 2016, 2017, 2018 timeframe, and have kind of been de facto keeping it, well, storing it while it was in hiatus, I suppose. But we want to bring it back to life, and we need to and encourage some new volunteers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the typical where we left off, what we had for initiatives, and so that we can kind of prime the pump and see what resonates with people, and where, if anything, there's interest and willingness to help. But to start, my background in systems dynamics, I've been a practitioner since the late 90s. I run and operate a small professional services organization called Uncommon Catalyst, and where system dynamics is a portion of our business. We usually have usually one or two projects that are operational in a given year. And the rest of the time, we run an IT services organization that helps keep the lights on. So that's me. I'm going to go from my left to right here on the top of my screen. Felix, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Felix, and I'm from Germany. I'm quite new into system dynamics. I have attended the summer school this year. And yeah, I don't know what I can expect in this meeting here, but I saw the email on the System Dynamics Society and thought, okay, it would be worth to be here. That's why you see my background here. I'm in an RV. I'm on vacation, but I didn't want to have missed the meeting. And yeah. Beside my job, I work as a business development manager in an IT company. We have a software, and I'm a business development manager for a certain topic, and I study part-time. I'm in my master's program, and at the beginning of October, I will start my master's thesis, and I want to write this about guess you know about system dynamics, and it's about the strategy, or I want to use system dynamics for a market entry strategy for an IT company in a foreign country.
Very good. William.
Yes, hi, William Chernikoff. How long have I been working with system dynamics? It actually started a while ago when one of Professor Sturman's doctoral students reached out to me when in my prior position to get some data. That was my real formal introduction to it. It resonated so strongly. I guess I recognized a lot of things I was intuitively doing with the methodology, prompted me to shift kind of my focus and ended up doing my doctoral dissertation using system dynamics methodology. Use it, more the system thinking and the system dynamics kind of approach to things within my work, which at least occasionally deals with market transformation and how do we bring in a lot of these advanced climate-related technologies, but not a day-to-day thing, but certainly infused in the work that I do in the sustainability alternative energy space.
Very good. Forgive me if I pronounce your name, Geraldo, is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry for my English, first of all. Gerardo from Argentina. I'm an engineer and also have a Master of Science there in the Air Force Institute of Technology, 2004. I'm teaching operations in the Austral University here in Pilar, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Operations, supply chain, and also I'm delivering a course for the system dynamics in the master program. I began with system dynamics 6 or 7 years ago, and actually I attended the last two conferences, virtually the last two conferences, the year 2020 and this year. I'm doing a PhD trying to, to define my research proposal. I'm trying to, to research related with clusters, the impact of cluster and the characteristics of clusters in economic performance of at local levels for the industrial clusters. This is more or less the topic I'm trying to develop.
Very good, very good. Corintias.
Yes, so my name is, you can see my name is Corintias Sianipar, but you can call me Morgan. That's my middle name. So I am originated from Indonesia, but now I'm working in Japan. So this is already Wednesday here, midnight. So.
Oh my, thank you for joining us so late.
It's okay, it's okay. So so I'm now teaching in Kyoto University, Japan. And I'm teaching introduction to systems modeling in undergraduate and practice in systems modeling, particularly system dynamics in master and PhD level. And I've been using system dynamics since 2010, probably, yes. Yeah, my contact with informal contact with system dynamics started in 2009, but I formally learned to do it in 2010. So so I am very glad that we are restarting our initiation in PSIG, and I'm looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Francisco.
Hello, I'm connected from Chile, close to Gerardo Acosta in the south of America. Yeah, I'm novice in this area of system dynamics in the way I think you will explain later. But I'm very old in the systemic thinking. My background is in psychology. I'm studying systemic psychology, even the fifth discipline of Peter Singer was my seminal book in this 80s, I think, or 90s, early 90s. Then I moved to the HR area, human resources management. I was director from many companies, multinational companies, and dropped my executive career 4 years ago to start a new path into the academia. More than, I think, 15 years teaching in the university and master degrees in human resources management, and moved to the Mondragon University in the north of Spain, in Euskadi, country Basque, to start my doctoral studies. And actually, think I finished this year, and I want to modeling this thesis in Vensim or another tool. That's it, brief.
Very good, very good. I think Jean-Jacques.
Yes, I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm a business and for about 20 years. I'm making my models for myself, for my own problems. I don't work for other people. I work for my own problems. Then I systems and the decision taker and generally too, I'm very concerned with the results of my models, because if my model is wrong, I will support the consequences. That's what I was saying. I think that among the system dynamic society members, I have found very little people like me. Generally, people work for the other problems, for other people's problems, and not for their own problems. This is my peculiarity. That's all what I want. And about system dynamic, I work with other methods too. Actually, presently, the model I am working on uses of dynamic programming. I don't know if you know what dynamic programming is. It's about intelligent artificial. It's dynamic programming is also known as reinforcement learning. Dynamic programming is very like system dynamic, but I found that system dynamic people don't know this method. I don't know why. It comes from the MIT, and the most influenced person in dynamic programming teaches in MIT. It's Bertekas. And Bertekas and David Stallman work in the same place, but I think they don't know each other. I don't know why. It's rather funny. Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's good to meet you. So I'm going to share out my screen and do a high-level walkthrough. Kareem, you've joined. Well, I'll let him join the audio here. Good day, Kareem. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Seth?
I'm doing well. We are, well, looks like you're joining us from the beach. We just went through introductions, so if I could put you on the spot to tell the rest of the group here a little bit about yourself. And
yeah, no problem. Been doing system dynamics for decades. Co-president at IC Systems and professor at Worcester Polytech.
very good. All right. I'm about to launch into kind of an overview of where we left off in our efforts around 2017. And let me pop that up here on the screen here. Let's see, there we go. So hopefully everyone can see that. All right. So we have a general initiative in terms of coordination to work with the other SIGs and to understand where there's opportunities for cross-fertilization in efforts so that we don't have to necessarily go it alone in this endeavor. There's a lot of overlap. Business is a broad category. We've done some work in health. We've done some work in programming. We've done some work in IT. And it's one of those kind of, again, overlapping SIGs, if you will. So we have a BSIG page. It has gotten tired since the last we touched it. I need to reestablish access to it, so that's on me. And again, put a pen to updating our current efforts, make it look alive again, and to get some meetings scheduled on the board. We've also have a YouTube channel that we've been pushing our meetings to, with some exceptions, which I'll get into in a bit. And then on a new item, since we last met, the Society has adopted Google Suite as their backend infrastructure, which means we now have a home for a lot of the things that we in my organization had been hosting previously. So migrating all of our content over to that platform so it can grow and live within its permanent home as opposed to its foster home, if you will. And we need to migrate our mailing list as well. Those also are coming out, as you saw the email last night, that comes out under our brand. I want to get that under systemsdynamics.org, and so that we can get those pushing through. So we need volunteers to, in particular, we saw a strong benefit to making a connection and maintaining a connection with the student chapter, where we're trying to help find jobs for a lot of these students that are coming out of academia. They want to enter the workforce. We need to provide a pathway for them. So keeping in touch with the student chapter was a big deal. And there's some work to be done in terms of reestablishing that connection, understanding who the current lead is on the student chapter and what the point of contact is. And then working on plans for mentorships and internships, trying to foster that, that pipeline of talent into fruition. All right, so next, identify contacts within each SIG and work with them to identify cases that may be beneficial to post to the case repository, which some of you may or may not know about. It's an initiative that was started by Kim Warren, and has been carrying on through the years, and has a modest collection of well-written cases for us to share. We're looking for elements that we could, in conversation with potential clients or problem owners, go and look and see what's in the public fora, what's the body of work that's been done. Can we cherry pick a few things that may be useful to show this was the problem, this is the the method, and this was the result. A very simple formula. So again, to work to expand that database and round it out, because there's a lot of work. I know it personally within my practice, there's a lot of work that we can't talk about, but there's some things that we can, and we try to cherry pick those and bring those out, because it's really the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's being done in the field of system dynamics. We've got a contact database that needs some maintenance and some pruning. Then we also had some surveys that we were working to support. And had also considered a newsletter at some point. All of these things, well, the coordination, I think, is a given. That's something that we should definitely do, I think, as a SIG, but all of these things are up for discussion. None of this is, rote, must do kind of thing. So I'm just going to go through these here real quick to bring everybody up to speed, and then we can have a conversation about what makes sense for the organization and what we want to do for leadership and volunteers, and what pace we want to set for these efforts. So I owe the Society an annual report. There's not much that was done in 2021, so it should be pretty easy to write formulaically based on the annual report that was last submitted. And we were looking to also set up a Google form. Again, once everything's been migrated over to the System Dynamics Society's Google infrastructure, we can set up a Google form that can then ingest member publications. So one of the things for the annual report is, from within our membership, we need to be pushing to the Society all things that our membership have published within that special interest group, as a means of, again, of cross-fertilization and promoting the work, so that the number of eyes on this research grows. Our next initiative, this one we actually found got a pretty fair amount of traction, and something that I'd really like to carry forward. If we do, only the top 3, this is definitely one of them. We had a webinar series up on YouTube where we looked at giving people who have been doing work within the field where there's a business angle, give them more than the 15 or 10 minutes they'd get at the conference to present, give them a whole hour and a substantive dialogue to talk through their particular effort, put it up on YouTube, again, to give us more things as practitioners to point to as notable examples of success. So we've got, I was next on the line. I've got some best practices that we've honed through the years in terms of how to visually formulate a model, to make it easy for individuals to understand and to digest. Some common things around, take it from the field of interface design and applied to mathematical models to kind of smooth that gap. We recognized there was a number of things that people were doing as they tried to digest the model. So what we try to do is pre-digest it for them so they get to the meat of it, as opposed to having to untangle it and hopefully get further through that process of understanding it and coming to, have an understanding and are trusting of the results, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so that was on me. We had a few others various topics that we were looking at. We've got a speaker list that's presented. Obviously that's gone stale, so there's some work to revive that and to bring that back up into again, a pipeline of projects that we're talking to not someone who's going to present this month, but we're talking, 2 months, maybe 3 months ahead to give them a long runway to prepare their materials, get ready to present, and gives us enough time to promote it and get an audience. It goes up on YouTube, so it's not necessarily, it doesn't demand a live audience, but it's definitely a better conversation if there's some back and forth with the Q&A, as opposed to just an oration on a particular bit of work. We're trying to, again, make this as broadly interesting as possible to a broad audience. We were also looking at setting podcast feeds for some of the meetings, again, to make it easier for people to keep in touch. But that's a secondary issue to do the webinar series. But just looking at how people consume content, and again, to find those points in the lives of everyday practitioners where they can shoehorn this content in. I find that I have 10 times more time of my free time, a vast majority of it I can listen to things, but I can't necessarily watch things. So find a way to put this in an audio format seems like a good idea. We had plans to do a case competition. So this is where we'd pick a business problem with possibly a publicly traded company where the information, the data was readily available, and put that out to both practitioners and students as a way of getting them in a kind of like a hackathon, if you will, short time period, model this problem and devise a solution, present the results, and we'd award a cash prize of some manner to those, again, to build interest and to foster that interrelationship, intercommunication amongst practitioners. Because in some ways, this is it's a one-on-one. We deal with customers and the problem owners, but there's not a lot of talk amongst practitioners apart from forums like this in the conference. So again, to bring that cross-fertilization and networking, if you will, and do some good for some students who want to and some practitioners who want to practice and have examples that they can point to in the public fora, whereas things that are tied up in NDA you can't talk about. We had some inner SIG initiatives that we were looking at, one in particular with regarding enterprise architecture with I forget the SIG that we were looking at working with. Anyway, there was one where there was a clear overlap. Our other success, if you will, pardon the pun, was success stories. We had taken and reviewed, again, notable successes within the field of system dynamics and written pieces of articles, if you will, for the layperson, someone who was outside of academia, who was maybe a problem owner within an organization, or someone who was interested in system dynamics as a field and wanted to see in something that was easily approachable, this is what I do. Even so much for practitioners to say, hey, mom, this is what I do, read this. To make it easy, because there's a lot of stuff that's written by academics for an academic audience, and it doesn't resonate with the broadest audience. So we take those key learnings and again, in that format of this was the problem, this is the method, this was the result, and we put those out. So we published 5 or 6 of them, and we had them up on a website. Unfortunately, during the transition to the management company, which has since transitioned out of the was transitioned away from them with the society, that content was lost. We have the original, but the site itself is no longer functional. So one of the things I'd like to do is work with the society to establish access to that archive site. I've been told that final backups exist, but to bring that content out of archival storage and again, make it publicly available so that we can point to it and again, use those in our conversation with prospects and friends and colleagues. So we had a whole, not just the ones that we published, we had a queue working. You can see some of those cases, the links. I'll make these available to, if you want to put your email in chat, or if you want to message me privately, that's fine. I can make these links available Actually, I think, let me just check. Anyone who has the link, look at this. So I'm going to post this here into chat. Then you're welcome to follow along, click on those as your heart desires. And the architecture is designed so that we've got an initiative and we've got details on the initiative, and underneath that are the work in progress for that. So it's very logically and hierarchically organized within the tree. Once this moves over to the Society's Google Drive, we'll again take a pass at that, and I'll walk you all through it, anyone who's interested. All right, so those are the cases that were in progress. Some of them had been well written and were waiting for editorial review, others in various stages, and some were just in consideration. So, and we've got another 10 leads beyond the ones that we'd started in on. So a good healthy pipeline of these. And the idea here was to take talent from within, from student talent within academia, those who don't quite have the exposure and experience yet, but help them write in such a way, because again, they're young in their career, but they know how to, they may know how to speak in a manner that resonates well with people outside of the discipline because of their proximity, I guess, if you will. So there's a benefit there from their voice, but there's also a benefit to them in that they're able to build these connections with established practitioners as they go to write these cases. We're not asking the practitioner to write this in their own, we're pairing them with an author, a student author, whomever, an author within the group to write this on their behalf. Obviously, it goes before their review, before it's published, but the idea is then to help these people who are young in their career establish these relationships with practitioners who are well down the path of their career. All right, so next, supporting the case repository. So again, to provide additional cases into that case repository, to feed it, to promote it, to use it. The case repository and the success stories are somewhat at not necessarily cross purposes, but correlated and beneficial purposes. The case repository was meant to be broad in terms of its application, and provide specific details and other follow-on materials, and kind of to demonstrate the breadth of applicability of system dynamics to a variety of problems. Success stories were meant to take that a deeper dive into that, and a very polished and careful presentation along those same lines. So kind of a vertical and horizontal axis, if you will, and to round that out. And we weren't taking every case and writing a story about it, but we were picking and choosing which ones made the most sense, and we thought would resonate well with the audience that we were after. So the action item here is talk to society and see what their vision is for the case repository, and again, make sure that we're operating in coordination with that effort. Let's see, and then again, as appropriate and beneficial, again, that lead generation to build leads for both of those products. We had initiatives around participation in other conferences, in terms of encouraging our membership to present their work at conferences other than the International Systems Dynamics Conference, and to work on being present at those conferences, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, the ISDC coming up next year, to work on being a bigger part of that, and both within our membership and in terms of preparing materials and encouraging for that audience, but also understanding what's being presented and how it might benefit a business audience, again, to pick and choose from there and promote some of those success stories or webinars and the like. We had done some work on a strategic planning model. So looking at the overarching process and mechanism whereby talent is produced within academia and brought into the marketplace, and then that is used to productive purpose and the like, and to look at how that lifetime of a practitioner and the health of the overall of the discipline, basically to use our own tool to model our own challenges. What we discovered is as in many modeling efforts, there's a lack of data. And so working with the society and those to craft a way to collect the data that we need to inform the model so it becomes less of a theory and more of an observation and something that we can actually use for policy development, and to identify what are some of the roadblocks and impediments to adoption. So that, again, on hold, limited efforts. We had limited resources to do that, so we kind of had to make a hard choice and say, we're going to put a pin in that, and we'll come back to that once we've grown the SIG large enough that we can carve that off, and 3 or 4 or 5 people can take a run at gathering the data in the time that they have available. There's conversation around certification. I don't know where the society ended up on that. I know it was talked about within the policy council. We wanted to be obviously aware, because certification oftentimes affects the business side more than others. And I think that was the purpose and aim of discussing whether or not the society wanted to offer a certification program in addition to the degree program that many of us have gone through.
What is it? You said you're talking about certification of system dynamics?
Yes, exactly. System dynamics certification.
I didn't know that this exists. Okay.
No, there was a conversations about starting it, about establishing a certification board and criteria and the like. The idea being to protect the practice of it in such a way that those with limited experience or limited qualification might inadvertently and unintentionally produce products that are not up to the standard that we espouse, and could potentially turn some clients off on the discipline, because it's very easy when you get as many of you know, when you get unreasonable results from a model to blame the model as opposed to look into the why.
That's great.
So the other thing that we were working on was something called the System Dynamics Exchange, which was a digital effort to kind of bring together a variety of elements. Again, this was a grand vision, but with a limited team, we didn't have enough resources to pull this off. So this kind of gotten put aside, something we definitely want to keep in mind again as we grow. I'll let you read it in your leisure. I see many of you are in the doc now, but it had elements of a file exchange for exchanging models themselves or molecules or functions as ways that we as practitioners don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are common archetypes that pervade many systems. Having knowledge of all those pieces and how they interrelate and their interfaces can be super useful. Bringing together user groups organized around software platforms, talent rosters, and the like things like that. Bringing in some aspects that the society already does, being the job board, as well as like a project board where RFPs can be presented. I think that the job board is used for that in some regards today. Looking at building a knowledge base of companies with active or dormant staff trained in SD. The institutions are turning out a lot of people who have exposure to it, but may not be practicing or have knowledge. I've run into many more than I have ever expected in my career, of people who's like, oh yeah, I took a class at Sloan in this, and I didn't know anybody, actually did this as a practice. But beginning to understand, what's the addressable market, if you will, as these professionals who's been exposed to the methodology are have moved from academia into practice. They're at various stages in their career, but they may not know how to take what they've learned in those classes, sometimes years or decades ago, and apply it to the problem that they currently face today. I think it's a problem for many modelers, myself included, to have a tool set and to have a problem and not realize that the tool set can aid in addressing the problem. And again, as Jean mentioned, model your own problems. It's oftentimes difficult for us to get out of our head and say, yeah, I understand what's going on. I just got to work harder. But to take a step back and apply the methodology to your own issues takes a bit of, and sometimes it takes some external forcing factor. But in any way, to build back to the System Dynamics Exchange, to build a database or somehow understand the breadth of exposure to System Dynamics within industry, and to have some knowledge or insight on that seems like a worthwhile endeavor. Conduct student surveys again. And I forget exactly what the aim was there, but no need to dig that up right now. As well as list of consumers, as well as programs where System Dynamics is taught. There are a large number of institutions now that have at least a course or two, or even a degree in System Dynamics. To have a list of those is super useful. It may be maintained by the society, I don't know. But bringing that into a publicly accessible database seemed like a good idea. And then providing collaboration resources. They've already adopted Google Drive and Google Suite for the society, and they have Zoom accounts available to SIG leaders, and as well as additional collaboration resources. So in some regards, the time has improved the perspective of what needs to be done. Let's see, scrolling through this a little bit further. Okay, so those are the main initiatives that we had set out. Again, some on hold, some that were more actively developed. I'll leave this to you to open it to discussion in terms of what's resonated with you, what things make sense. And open it up. Any questions, comments, thoughts? I'll read Kareem's comment here. Thank you, Kareem. I think you're absolutely correct that we definitely want to support and aid the society's efforts in this regard, and push where they're already pushing. So in any of these efforts where we're operating, orthogonal or pushing in a different vector, I want to realign that and move forward towards that. So the biggest challenge is understanding the society's efforts. So having those connections within the society that can make those that can realign us, I think is super helpful.
Can we get these issues in order to check better in depth, and then trying to see if we can help with some issue of this one?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Sorry. If we can get this information in order to know where we can help in the particular thing of this one, no? So
I think that rolls back to collaboration. I think that the first thing that I need to do, and can happen at the same time, is set a meeting with Rebecca Niles in the central office. Yeah, I assume she'd have at least she was instrumental in many of these efforts, and talk with her and see where the society is in some of these, and make sure that we can align on those efforts and refactor where necessary.
And sorry, these efforts are only for the business SIG, or are common for all the society?
I would be happy if other SIGs wanted to adopt a similar approach or coordinate on similar efforts. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to share this or coordinate with other SIGs in that regard. It's my it's my goal that many of the SIGs adopt, that we can coordinate on some of these things. Certainly the system dynamics exchange is something that I'd much rather see as omnibus, across the entire society, something that there's a society effort as opposed to just something done by the business SIG. It came up as an idea from one of our members as something that he was really passionate about and wanted to see happen. And I think that's certainly something that doesn't just have to live within the business SIG. It's more of a grow where you're planted and if possible help. All right. Thank you, Francesco. I appreciate the link there. It's talking, Francesco is.
It's
yeah,
very interesting because Kumu, it's a platform to modeling in system dynamics. And then they move to the entire platform of networking and connection and project management. It's very, very interesting to see if it fits with the society.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Thank you. All right. With that, if no further discussion, I need to have for the society requirements and for our bylaws, I believe we need to have 2 co-leads, or at least if not a requirement, it's at least super helpful to have someone else besides myself. I'm happy to serve in that role. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. If you want to stand up and say, yeah, I'm willing to help, awesome. If not, shoot me a private message. You have my email since you got the link yesterday. And let's do this. Let anybody who's willing to help in that faculty, let me know. If there's more than 2 of us, then we can put it out to a vote to the membership. From there on, anybody who wants to help but doesn't want to take a leadership role or whatnot, but wants to help in any of these initiatives or craft new initiatives. We're very flat in our organizational structure. It's just a matter of who's going to write the annual report. It's really and schedule the meetings and make sure that things move forward. That's all that we do. So anybody who wants to help is more than welcome to, but I'll leave that out. We are seeking nominations in that regard. And the other topic then of conversation is we had a cadence of meeting quite frequently, often monthly, sometimes more often than monthly as we were leading up to the conference. We meet weekly in some instances. That cadence worked well for that team at that time. But obviously from the lag, we got burnt out. And there were a lot of things that compete for those priorities. So conscious of that, I want to set a reasonable pace where people can contribute and feel like they're not like stealing from something else, but they can assist and push forward as time is available. So maybe the best thing to do is to put it out as a doodle poll. Happy to have conversation here in this meeting about the frequency. Do we want to meet monthly, every other monthly, quarterly? I think a lot of it depends on the nature of the initiative in terms of the pace. And with that, the format of the meeting, with multiple initiatives, if we're all united on one or 2 initiatives, then a singular meeting and a singular thread seems to make sense. But if we're divided on multiple initiatives and some people want to be involved in one but not another, multiple meetings have been suggested in the past where it's just focused on that particular initiative, and maybe a shorter meeting whereby they can contribute and then drop off and go on to the next thing. I'm happy to have a hybrid too, where people stay for 10 minutes and then drop off after we've discussed their initiative of interest. Very open to conversation on this, so I'll open the floor for that. And I also recognize that some of us simply want to have a connection to the other like-minded members and don't really have a lot of time to contribute, but want to maintain the connection, and that's fine too. So I'm happy if you just want to stay tuned and consume it and share it as you see fit. That's awesome as well. So I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but that's all I had for today.
My first thought is this is an initiative that is starting. Maybe it's a good idea to keep together until the pieces come and take their
Yes.
shape, and then decide if you make a different path for different initiative. Depends on the complexity.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. Thank you, Corinthians. Corinthians, I appreciate it. Yes, I will share this list with Rebecca. She was one of the regular members of the group, and these are all things that I'm sure she'll recall on very short notice. So we should be able to harmonize that, and we'll come away with that categorization, things that are fully taken care of by the society versus their coordination among the SIGs. And to kind of categorize those efforts and potentially surface some others where she may think we could do some good there. We're not always aware of our blind spots. So. All right, with that, I want to thank you all for attending today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Looking forward to doing some good. And again, thank you for your time. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you, staff.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.